Okay, so today's deep dive, well, it's a weird one, not gonna lie.
Yeah, buckle up.
We're looking at this piece from the Daily Beast, and the title is a doozy. Putin just loves JD Vance for standing up to childless cat ladies. You read that right.
It's quite a headline.
JD Vance, U.S. Senator, and Vladimir Putin finding some kind of common ground. It's not the combo you expect.
No, not at all. I mean, at first glance, you wouldn't think they have much in common, right? But this article, it digs into how Putin's really latched onto what Vance has been saying about family values.
Especially those childless cat ladies comments. But, like, this feels bigger than just Vance, right?
100%. You hit the nail on the head. It's not really about Vance himself. It's about what his words represent to the Kremlin, you know? Russia's got a real population problem, a crisis, actually. Their birth rate is the lowest it's been in decades. Think about it. Less than 600,000 births just in the first half of this year.
Seriously, that's all.
That's a drop of over 16,000 compared to last year, same time period. And when you add in that the death rate is higher than the birth rate by over 50%, it's a situation.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So how does Vance play into this?
Well, the Kremlin, they're looking for ways to frame this whole population thing, you know, control the narrative. And JD Vance, surprisingly, fits right in.
So they're using him, basically.
Kinda, yeah. They're pointing to his whole stance on family, traditional values, even the cat lady stuff, as a way to justify their own push to get those birth rates up.
Interesting. But this article, it mentions some pretty wild stuff, like Russia's thinking about banning childlessness propaganda. That just sounds intense.
Yeah, it's something else for sure. We're talking fines up to 400,000 rubles, which is over $4,000, just for promoting a child-free lifestyle.
Huh.
And it gets wilder.
Wilder how?
The article talks about this guy, Alexander Dugin. He's a big Russian ultranationalist figure, and he's suggesting they go even further, like ban condoms and contraceptives altogether.
Whoa, hold on. Ban condoms. How does that even make sense? If they're worried about the population declining, that seems completely counterproductive.
Right. It's weird. And it shows this tension, you know, between individual freedom and what the government wants to control. And that's a big theme in Russia's history, right?
Totally.
And you can't forget about the women in all of this. It's their lives, their choices that are being directly impacted. The article talks about feminist activists facing more and more pressure, scrutiny, just for speaking out about things like reproductive rights and family planning.
So women are caught in the middle of all this.
Absolutely. It's a big deal. You know, it's not just talk. These are real women dealing with the consequences of this fight between like what's seen as traditional and what actual freedom looks like.
You know, it makes you think, is Russia the only one dealing with this? Or is this whole traditional values versus individual freedom thing happening everywhere?
Oh, it's definitely not just Russia. Lots of countries are seeing this, especially the developed ones. Birth rates are dropping. Families look different now. It's causing some anxiety for sure.
So how are other countries handling it?
It depends. Some are trying to be more, I don't know, encouraging, like making it easier to have kids, better work-life balance, affordable childcare, that kind of thing.
So more like rewards instead of punishments.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can't just force people to have bigger families, right? But then there's the other way, like what Russia's doing. They're all about those traditional family values, even if it means getting kind of strict about it.
It's funny, though, because the article mentions that almost half of Russians just straight up don't want children.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It's like what the government wants doesn't match up with what people actually want. And it's not even just about like rejecting traditional values or anything. It's something deeper, you know? How younger generations think about family, about being parents, it's changing.
So if it's not just about tradition, what's causing this shift? In Russia, but also everywhere else that's seeing this happen.
It's complicated. There's a bunch of stuff going on. But money worries are definitely a big part of it. Cost of living's going up. Jobs aren't so secure. Housing is crazy expensive. It's tough to even think about kids when you're worried about all that.
Yeah, basic survival has to come first, right?
Right. Plus, there are the cultural changes, too, especially with the younger generations. They're focused on different things. Personal goals, careers, freedom to do their own thing. That doesn't always line up with, you know, the whole traditional family setup.
Which brings us back to that whole freedom versus control thing.
Yeah.
Feels like the government trying to fix something that's way more complicated than they realize.
Totally. Like they see a problem and think they can just like force a solution. But people's choices about kids, that's personal. It's about way more than just what some policy says.
It feels wrong, honestly. Like pressuring people into having kids just doesn't seem right.
It's not. And that's an important point. If you want to address this issue, whether it's in Russia or anywhere else, you got to look at the whole picture. You can't ignore the economic anxieties, the social stuff, and you definitely can't just dismiss individual choices.
It's like you can't just force a baby boom.
Exactly. It's way more complicated than that.
This whole thing with JD Vance and Russia, it's been eye-opening. Like, what's the takeaway here? Feels like there's a bigger lesson about, I don't know, global politics, maybe.
Totally. I think the big takeaway here is how everything's connected globally in ways we don't always see. You have U.S. senators saying stuff about family values, and it ends up, even indirectly, playing a role in what the Kremlin's doing over in Russia.
It's wild when you think about it.
Right. It shows you how much power words can have, especially when they come from people in charge. Vance is saying these things, probably not thinking about Russia, but Putin's using those words to push his own agenda.
It's a good reminder to, like, pay attention to what our leaders are saying, even if it seems totally unrelated to our own lives.
Absolutely. What starts as a local issue can blow up into something much bigger.
Well, this deep dive has definitely given us a lot to think about. Really appreciate you breaking all of this down for us today.
Anytime. Happy to be here.
And to everyone listening, we hope this episode has given you some new insights on, well, everything we've talked about today. It's a complicated world out there, but hey, we're all in it together. And don't forget, those U.S. elections are coming up. Like we've been saying, the results are going to have a ripple effect, and not just here at home. Until next time, keep asking those tough questions and dive into the issues that matter. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.